Hello, genealogy friends, and welcome to this week's episode of Family Tree Notebooks TV, brought to you from my rainy car, because where else would I record something? It's been a good week. I've got news for you. I've got some fast tips, and then we're going to be talking about family history or organization. So news first, not a ton of news coming out for Family Tree Notebooks itself. I do have new pages that are going to be coming out on Wednesday, so tomorrow, and I will share a sneak peek at the end of this video. In general news, last week, Finding Your Roots started. Which season is it? I can't remember. I want to say 9th, but I don't know why I think that. But the new season of Finding Your Roots came out, and it was Julia Roberts and Edward Norton. And I was super excited about this one because I love Julia Roberts. And then her stuff was fine. It was fun to watch, but I actually really liked Edward Norton's portion because he was so into it and he was so knowledgeable about the history and knowledgeable about his own family history, but also could place the events that they were talking about, you know, in the larger scheme of what was going on in the world. I love that. It made me want to hang out with him and talk about history. The episode for tonight is Claire Danes and Jeff Daniels. So look for that. I don't know how you guys watch Finding Your Roots. It's on PBS, so it should be accessible to anyone who has a television. And I know that people, you know, DVR it or whatever on their cable. We actually don't have cable service. We don't have anything like that hooked up. And we don't have an antenna for our TV. What we have is we have an Apple TV, and then we pay for the PBS app. If you have an Apple TV, 1000% you need to get the PBS app. You can also watch it on your phone or on your iPad, but it's something ridiculously small, like $5 a month. It's so sad how small it is. And we watch that more than we watch anything else. We watch that more than Netflix. We watch that more than Hulu. You can watch, it's not everything on demand, but there's so many shows that are on demand. And Finding Your Roots just pops up there. So I know that it's coming out on Tuesday. And then I haven't actually checked Tuesday morning because, you know, Finding Your Roots doesn't air until the evening. But I know that we watched the last Finding Your Roots episode pretty early, 4 or 5 or something for us. So it was available. And then you can pause it and everything, which is always really nice. I also love to watch, I grew up watching Nova. I love to watch Nova. They have a bunch of the Ken Burns documentaries on there, and they switch. So they don't always have the same ones. But is The West on there right now? I can't remember. The West is my favorite Ken Burns documentary. I know National Parks is on there right now. I think baseball's on there. Prohibition is probably on there. Anyways, if you look for Ken Burns. Oh, there's one on the Mayo Clinic that's only an hour long or something like that, or an hour and a half. That one's so good. I'm going off in a tangent, but yeah, if you like Ken Burns, if you like Nova. Oh, Finding Your Roots. Yes, obviously Finding Your Roots. And you can watch back episodes of Finding Your Roots. So that's also great because I've watched every episode of Finding Your Roots at least 3 times. No, Antiques Roadshow. That's another one that my husband and I love to watch. And they have great performances. They only keep them up for a little while, but they have, you know, ballet and opera and the concerts and stuff like that. It's just, the PBS app is just, it's stuffed with good stuff. I can't believe it's only $5. Anyway, Finding Your Roots is on tonight. It's the 2nd episode, and it's Claire Danes and Jeff Daniels. If you wanted something else that was celebrity related, Ancestry has this little show. It's not on TV, but it's on the website, and it's called Two Lies and a Leaf, I think is what it's called. If you look for Ancestry, Two Lies and a Leaf, lies and a leaf, not lives. Or honestly, if you probably just look for Ancestry show episodes, it'll come up. They did one really recently with Sarah Hyland from Modern Family. So if you like her, then you can go online and watch that as well. I'm excited about the fact that Finding Your Roots is opening up casting to at least one regular person. But honestly, I love the celebrities, and I think that it gets people interested in genealogy and makes them excited about family history and opens their eyes to what they might be able to do for their own family. And I think that that's great. So even though I know there's a lot of criticism for why don't you do regular people? You know, celebrities have access to all of this. Why don't you just... I think that it's raising awareness, and it's making the genealogy community stronger. There's not a ton of news out from Family Search this week. They're getting ready for Roots Tech. So Roots Tech is March 2nd to the 4th. And actually, so now, middle of January, all of the Roots Tech giveaways are starting to come out. As a Roots Tech I can't remember if we're called influencers or ambassadors, but we're all given tickets to give away, and people are doing their giveaways in January. So there's a ton of giveaways that are happening right now. Mine's not up yet. I'm not going to do mine until next week at the earliest. But if you look on social media and you search for Rootstock or Rootstock giveaway, you're going to see people's posts. If you want to come to Rootstock, especially if you want to come in person, I would enter as many of those as possible. I know when I've had them in the past, they've been a lot of fun, but they've also been relatively low entry, where you were like 1 out of 30 people that entered, which is pretty good odds. So, yeah, I'm excited for Rootstock. I don't have a Rootstock plan yet, but I will talk about that soon in an upcoming episode. So if you don't look at the Family Search newsroom, I have the Family Search newsroom bookmarked on my computer, and I check it around the end of each month or the beginning of the month, because what happens is they do like a monthly bulletin. I don't actually know when it comes out, but they tell you what records were added in the last month, and that's how I stay on top of whether or not there's anything else that's going to be interesting for my family. And in December, they added coroner records for a period of time for Oakland, California. And my great-grandfather, I didn't know enough about the circumstances of his death. I knew, I guess, the circumstances, but not the exact details. And so I searched, and I was able to find a coroner report. It was just a little index cards, a couple of typed lines, very sad and plain, but it solved the mystery and told me what I needed to know. So anyway, you might want to just keep that in mind. I'm not going to spend time on here like reading all of the new records, but it's really easy to scan the list because they start with the location that the records are from. And like they had a ton of South American ones and Central American ones this time, and I don't have family there. So I just sort of skimmed past that and went down to the United States. And then of course I'm always looking for California and Ohio and Illinois and Wyoming, because those are my big states that I research. But yeah. Okay, let's switch over and do 5 quick tips. So today's 5 quick tips, I'm going to do 5 quick tips on finding living people, because we always talk about finding dead people and finding more out about dead people, but finding living people is sometimes necessary and helpful and really, really challenging, especially when people don't want to be found. So the number one way that, it's not the number one way that I find people, but the first thing that I do if I'm trying to find a living person is I check to see if they're listed in a public record, because that's the easiest. There are some voting records that are public. There's different, this is kind of like when you Google yourself and then you try to figure out what comes up, but there's public records that may list their name and their contact information, address, sometimes an email, sometimes a phone number. If you go to Cindy's list, she's got a list of links for places to help you find people. And there's different services there that go through public records. If you can't find them in public records, then, or if you find a ton of public records, but you don't have enough information to figure out which people, if it's like a really common name, or you're looking in a large area and you don't know which address is going to go with the person that you're looking for, and you don't want to send a letter or whatever to, 55 different Jeff Daniels in California. Then I like to hop over to social media. You guys know that I'm a social media aficionado. I like social media. I think it's a great tool. Social media, the thing about it is that you can generally see more information about a person. So you can see their picture. You can maybe see who they're related to. Occasionally they've got the names of their children, or there might even be photos of them with parents or other family members that might help you. It depends on who you're looking for. When I finally connected with distant cousins over social media on my dad's side of the family, they had posted pictures of an older relative that I recognized as being the person whose descendants I was looking for, and they had talked about her birthday and stuff like that. Now, social media, it's kind of, you always feel a little bit creepy because you're stalking a stranger. That's why you don't have contact information for this person. They might be related to you, but they're still a stranger. And you're poking around looking at their social media, which they did not post so that you could find it. So that's always a little bit weird because, it's a little bit awkward. That being said, unless you've done something really creepy, as in you're impersonating somebody to try to get access to somebody's record, or you've somehow broken into some sort of private social media, I always figure it's social media. They put it out there. I'm going to send a message and just say, hey, I saw this. I think that we're connected this way. I think you're the person I'm looking for, and let it be what it is. Because honestly, contacting the living is always a little awkward. I don't know if that's just me. So much more comfortable doing research on dead people than I am on trying to talk to living people. But living people tend to be a little more helpful, especially about their own family history. And don't forget, like, it's not just Facebook. You can look on Instagram, you can look on LinkedIn. There's lots of different types of social media where you might find somebody. I just say Facebook because that tends to be where you can see connections between people and you can see a lot of information about somebody at once. So next tip, look at other records that might list them. So look for obituaries where these people are listed, and that might give you clues that you can then turn around and look at public records or social media and try to find the person. They might have signed a condolences book. There might be correspondence. You might have a yearbook that gives you more information, like an actual, the way that a person's name is spelled or a full name or something like that, or at least it gives you a general age for the person. So again, you can go back and look at other things. Okay, so the fourth tip is to check cemeteries, not only because you can check the surrounding area and then it turns out that somebody's, not actually living. Like that's sort of a long shot, especially if you're pretty sure you're looking for a living person. But cemetery sites will occasionally, like Find a Grave, will occasionally have information on a person's grave that connects them to other people, and it will say like who submitted the information, and occasionally they'll link to an obituary that you might not have seen. So always want to check cemetery sites if you have a deceased ancestor or relative and you're looking for somebody connected to them. You can also actually call the cemeteries and find out if they have any information. Sometimes they'll have information they can give you about the person who actually arranged the burial or the funeral for the person that you're talking about. It depends on the cemetery though. Sometimes they don't keep it and sometimes they keep it, but they're not going to share it with you, which again, is totally at their discretion. And then the last tip that I wanted to share is that if you've done all this and you can't find the person you're looking for, then go ahead and post about them, but post carefully. And when I say post, I mean you can put out a social media post. If this is somebody that's sort of connected to your family and you're looking for them, whether it's a distant cousin or just whatever, unless there's some reason why other people wouldn't want you to talk to this person, if you post it to your social media, there's a chance that somebody else knows where that person is, because that person is not only connected to you, most likely. You can post to historical sites or historical groups and genealogy groups for the area that you're looking in. Don't be that person who just goes to the Ancestry Facebook group and is like, I'm looking for Jeff Daniels, because what are you doing? Stop it. But if you can narrow it down and be more specific, if you're looking for Jeff Daniels in Laramie, Wyoming, then posting to the Laramie, Wyoming Historical Society or the Laramie Genealogy Society kind of makes sense. Just know that you always have to be careful what you're sharing about living people. If you have somebody's full name and their birth date, you don't need to post that everywhere. You need to cut that down a little bit or only share stuff. I mean, I would be really annoyed if somebody was sharing my full name and my birth date everywhere. Not that it's not findable through different ways, but I don't know you. I appreciate that you're looking for me, but don't set me up to be a target of identity theft. So don't do that to people. So post, but post carefully. And those are my 5 tips for finding a living person. So I wanted to talk today about what are we talking about when we talk about family history or organization? Because I always talk about, oh, you want to organize your family history. It's so much better to do research when your family history is organized. Keep everything organized so that you don't make a mistake. And yet, family history organization is like a giant umbrella term that means different things to different people. And it doesn't just mean that you've done this one activity and now your family history is organized. So I wanted to talk about some of the different ways that you can organize your family history and different things that I do to keep things organized. The number one thing that I've done to organize my family history is that I've made my paper files match my digital files. For the longest time, I had files that I'd saved to my computer, and I had boxes and bins and folders and notebooks of paper files and paper notes. And it was like 2 independent camps that didn't talk to each other, even though they were talking about the same family tree. And I would lose something in one place and not be able to find it in the other, and it was a big mess. Once I adopted the indexing system from Family Tree Notebooks, I used that system to assign numbers to folders on my computer so that those folders matched the actual, chapters that I had in my Family Tree Notebooks. And I've been able to use those numbers consistently now when I find new records, when I find new photographs, and it just keeps everything very organized. The index from Family Tree Notebooks has been a huge help in keeping my family history organized because it gives every single direct ancestor a place for me to store all of their documents and their records and their photographs and things like that. The index, when you buy Family Tree Notebooks pages, the index is pre-printed up to the 4th great grandparents. And so each direct ancestor has an assigned number. There's also a blank index that you can use, and people use it as a supplement. They use it so they can go a little bit further. They use that if they want to assign index numbers to people who aren't direct ancestors, like, you know, cousins and siblings and stuff like that. But that core index that has a number for each direct ancestor up through all of those generations, that holds space for people that I haven't found yet. And for the people that I have found, it lets me fill that number up with records and documents and photographs. And I do make copies of, digital copies generally, of photos, of documents, of records. If they are connected to more than one person, like a census record might have, you know, 4 direct ancestors listed in it. If you've got a married couple and then one of their sets of parents is also living with them, I'm going to have a copy of that census record in every single chapter because that record touched that person's life and belongs under that index number. But yeah, the index has been incredibly helpful. Okay, so for storing photos and documents, I love page protectors. I love full-size page protectors for, you know, standard letter size documents and correspondence and 8x10 photos and things like that. And then I use these photo protectors that are designed for trading cards and I think sports memorabilia. And I use those to hold smaller photographs or smaller cards, smaller documents. The reason that I use those is because they're acid-free, they're easy to get. I just order mine from Amazon and they fit nicely into binders. And then I can just pull a binder down and flip through the documents and the photos as I need to. Now, I scan everything and I much prefer to work with the digital images because I want to touch a photo on a record as little as possible once it comes into my possession. But keeping them in page protectors just means that that's the safest way to store them on the off chance that I need them, or to just store them for later generations, because then they're protected, they're in an acid-free, you know, tight, confined space. They're not sliding around, getting bent, getting scuffed, getting faded. So yes, page protectors, they're fantastic. The other thing that I do with family history organization is that I make sure that the family history that we're creating right now, my husband and I and our kids, that I'm keeping it safe and that I'm storing that correctly so that it's scannable, so that it's findable, so that it's not just scattered all over my house, which is important because I have 3 kids who are all still pretty little. And so what I've done is I have 2 boxes per kid, acid-free plastic boxes. One is just an open box, and that's where we store mementos or favorite toys, pieces of clothing that they really don't want to get rid of. The deal is that they can only save as much stuff as will fit in the box. Now, each of my kids has their own bedroom. They have other things. It's not like this is your tiny box and I'm going to light the rest of your stuff on fire. But it gives them a place to say, okay, this is for my memory box, to remember this moment or remember this thing from my childhood. But it's also helping them to realize that you just can't save everything, that there is a limit. And if you want to put this big thing into your memory box, is there enough space? Does that mean you've got to take stuff out of it? So it's good because it's sort of teaching them to be intentional about that, even at a young age. The other thing that each of my kids has is that they have a box that has file folders that go all the way from baby up through their final year of high school. And so for each year of their life, that's where I put schoolwork that we've decided to save, artwork that we've decided to save, certificates they receive, special birthday cards, school photos. And it just, again, it gives me a place to put everything so I don't lose it. It gives me a really fast way to sort of look for something if I'm looking for something specific. And at the end of the school year, after I've spent the year filling up these folders, I do sit down and I scan everything in their folder that I can scan. I generally also will try to photograph things in the memory box, just because you never know. House fires, things like that. If our house was going up in flames, I would not be stopping to haul out 6 large plastic boxes and make sure that they were saved. So, but I don't have time throughout the school year, every single time my kids come home from school, to pull things out and sit down and scan them right then. So I just sit down at the end of the year and do that. And yeah, those are just some of the ways that I'm keeping the family history that I've got in my possession organized. Well, that's it for Family Tree Notebooks. I'm going to leave you with this quick sneak peek at the new pages that are going to come out this week. The new pages are coming out on Wednesday. So if you're on my email list, you will get an email. And if you're not on my email list, then why aren't you on my email list? And you can join that by going to familytreenotebooks.com. And I've got a couple of different fun handouts that you can get. And when you download those, then that will sign you up for my email list. So here's a look at the new pages, and I will talk to you soon.